So now it's time to learn how to insert movies into the database. So as you can see, if I click on my database, I have deleted all of the movies that I have. So my movies database now is empty. Let me now show you how you can insert movies into the database. So the first step is that we need to create, as usual, we need to create a new file. So I'm going to here create a new file, and then I'm going to name it. I'm going to here create a new file. Let me just pull this, and let me here create a new file. And then here I'm going to name it create underscore movie. Create or insert. Some developers like to name it create or insert. Create underscore movie dot php. And then I'm gonna just copy some code from any of these files. For example, from the delete here, I'm gonna copy the header and the require and also the response. So here I'm gonna copy this part, and then I'm gonna paste it in the create movie.php. And then I'm gonna close the PHP question mark and the angular bracket. And then let's now work on getting or inserting a movie into the database. So the process is that we need to insert information about that movie. So we need to insert the title, the title, the storyline, the box office, the stars, all of these things. And the ID, what you need to know is that the ID is going to be created automatically by the database. So the ID will be created by the database. So you don't have to worry about it. So what we need to do here is that we need to use if statement to check the parameters that the user is going to provide us. So the parameters are, as I told you, the parameters are the title, the storyline, the box office, the stars, also the language, the genre, all of these. The language, we also need the language, the genre, the release date, and also the box office, or the runtime, all of these things. So let me now here in the if statement, I'm going to use is set. Again, this is set is going to check whether the parameter exists or not. And for inserting a movie, we use a post request. We usually use a post request for inserting. It's better to use a post request for inserting. So I'm going to use here post, and then I'm going to start with the title. So we need the title, and then and we also need to check if the user provided. The second thing is the storyline. So we need the post and then storyline, and then and the third thing is the language. So here I'm going to say post language lang. And you need to be very, very careful here with the syntax, because there are many brackets and square brackets. So you need to be careful in order not to make a mistake here. And for the sake of saving some time, I'm just going to copy this. I'm going to copy this, and then I'm going to paste it many times because we need to create this many times for all of the parameters. For each parameter, we need this function is set and the post request in order to get that parameter. So I'm going to paste this like we need it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We need it 8 times. So we need here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 7, and finally here 8. So make sure that you have 8 times. You have the is set function 8 times. And of course, don't forget the and here between each single is set function and the next. So we need the title, storyline, language, and then we need also the genre. We need the genre, we need the release date. We need also the box office, box underscore office. And we need the runtime, and finally we need the stars. So we need here, let me add this in a new line. So we need the we got the title and storyline and the genre and the release date. So we have the release date, and then we need the runtime here. So here we need run time, and finally we need the stars. And we are good to go. So this is this if statement in case we have here, we have all parameters. So in case we have all parameters, we can continue. Else we cannot create a movie. We cannot insert a movie that doesn't have all of these parameters or all of this information, all of this info. So the user must provide all of these parameters before we can insert a movie. Then what we need to do inside the if statement is that we need to prepare our query. So I'm going to say here connect, con for connect, and then I'm going to call the prepare. And again, this connect, you should know by now, you should know what connect is. It refers, again, just to remind you, it refers to the connection. Here in the connection, we have created a variable called here con, which is the connection. And since we have here importing it, since at the top we have imported the connection here, we can use it here. We can use this connection here in order to call the prepare and prepare our statement. So the statement for inserting a movie is called, the command is insert, and then into, and then the name of the table, which is movies, and then the parameters that we want to insert. So we want to insert the title, comma, storyline, comma, language, lang for language, and then comma, and then genre, and then release date, and then box office, and finally we need the runtime and the stars. So we need comma and then runtime, and finally comma stars. And then in a new line, let me add this in a new line, and again you need to be careful, make sure that the syntax is correct. And then values, and then inside brackets we here pass question marks. How many question marks should we pass? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we need to pass 8 question marks because we need to pass the number of question marks that we need to pass here must match the number of parameters that we want to insert. So here we need to say question mark and then comma and then question mark and then comma and then question mark and then comma 8 times. 8 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We need another 1 and we are good to go. So make sure that you have here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And this is the query. Next, we want to append or bind the parameters. So we need here to say statement. First, we need to store this in a variable called statement, which is going to be equal to the connection. And then I'm going to say here statement, and then I'm going to call the bind param function. And then I'm going to here pass 2 parameters. The first parameter is the data type of these parameters. So the title is obviously a string, so it takes the S letter because the title is a string. The storyline is also string, so here we say S. The language is string, so I'm going to say S. The genre is string. The release date is string. The box office is integer. So is a float. So for float or double, we use D. And the runtime is a string as well. So the runtime here S, and the stars is float. So we say D. And finally, here we pass the name of the variables. So title, and then comma, and then storyline, and then comma, and then the language, lang, and then comma, and then the here the genre and the release date, genre, and then release date, and then comma, and then the box office and then runtime, box office, and then runtime, and finally the stars. But now we need to create these variables, because these variables now, all of them are null. We didn't create them. We passed here, we checked that these parameters have been passed by the user, but here we need to store, here we need to say store parameters in variables. So we need to create variables, these variables here at the top. So here we need to create a variable called title, which is going to be equal to the post, which is going to be equal to the post, and then title. Because we got the title from the user, and then we need to store it here in the variable, and then we need to append it to the query by passing this title here in the first place instead of this question mark. So this is for the title. We need to repeat the process for all of these variables. So I'm going to copy this, and then I'm going to paste it here many times. We need the storyline, which is going to be equal to the post, but here it's going to be storyline. And then we need also the language, lang, which is going to be equal to the post, and then lang. And then we need also the genre, which is going to be equal to the post, and then genre. And then we need the box office and the release date, which is going to be equal to the post and then release date. And then we need also the box office. So the process takes time, but it pays off because you don't have to do this many times. Once you have created this, it's going to work. It's going to always work, and you don't need to modify this except for a few situations. Stars, which is going to be equal to the title, which is going to be equal to the post, and then stars. And finally, we need the runtime. Don't forget the runtime, which is going to be equal to the post, and then runtime. And we are good to go. So these variables will be appended to this insert into movies. In other words, these variables will replace all of these question marks in order to be able to execute this SQL query. And this is for this part. Finally, we need to execute the query because we prepared it and we binded the parameters. We need here to execute. So here, execute query. So to execute the query, we use if statement always to make sure that it has been executed successfully. So I'm going to say statement and then execute, and then upon execute, if it has been executed successfully, I'm going to do something else. I'm going to do another thing. So in case of success here, as usual, in case of success, we need to let the user know that the movie has been inserted. So we can here say, we can use the response, and then inside that response, we can say message and error. So the error is going to be false because there is no error in this case. Error is going to be false. The response for the and the message for that I'm going to append to the response is going to say movie inserted successfully. And finally, we close the connection with the database. So here I'm going to say statement and then close to close the connection. This is considered one of the best practices. If you don't add this code, it's fine, but it's better to add this code. it's better to add this code. Finally, here in the else, we need to repeat the process here. We need to have these keys, but with different data. So here, in case of failure, here in case failure, so the error is going to be true. There will be an error. And the message is going to say failed to insert to the database. And finally here, in case we don't have the parameters, we need also to say that the error is true here. The error is going to be true. And the message is going to say, please provide all parameters. And I'm gonna here use the echo and display the response here, echo, and then JSON encode, and then I'm gonna pass the response. And don't forget the response. Don't forget that you have added the response at the top. We already got the response here. We have already an array called response at the top. So this is how you can create a script, a PHP script that is capable of inserting into the database. And this is one of the cornerstones of creating an API, which is inserting into the database.